Hello, hello. I want to welcome all of you to another hour of some of the stuff that is hard to find anywhere else except right here on this radio station and this radio show, the Universal Consciousness Show. We try to entertain you, educate, we open your mind, stretch your mind, and sometimes we are definitely blowing your mind away, and that is exactly what we're going to do today. And for those of you that want to hear this show again, you can find us on our website, of course, which we will tell you, and that also on Facebook under me and everybody else. And the station sends it out to just about everywhere, including YouTube, Twitter, and many others. So my name is Aage, and I'm the one of the hosts, and Diana, my co-host, is over in Germany. Are you there, Diana?
I'm here. Hello, everyone.
Hi there. All right. Well, we have a wonderful guest tonight, one that's going to keep you on the edge of your chair. So be very careful. Don't fall off, because this is one of those shows where that just might happen. Miesha Johnston is our guest, and she is a second-generation extraterrestrial experiencer. And boy, do I want to hear about that, and how an ET would communicate, and what they do, and how they conduct themselves. This is going to be interesting. But there's much more to her than that. She's also a hypnotherapist and specializes in trauma recovery and past life regressions. She is definitely a doer, and I love doers, because she also facilitates an internet support group for ET experiences and MyLab MK Ultra survivors twice a week in Las Vegas. She is a director of UFO Group of Las Vegas and facilitates 2 monthly support groups in her residence. She has had a number of abductions and contacts with ETs, and those are of different species. They could be the greys, the insectoids, mammals, reptilians, and some of them looking just like us. Yeah, there's some of those too. And she's had many MyLab experiences, and we need her to explain that one, because that's a new word for some of us. And she has been to the underground bases, been taken there by the dark side of government, where they work with the Grey and the reptilian factions. Her nightmare started when she was born into an MK Ultra family and subjected to trauma-based Project Montauk. That was Monarch abuse. She has 2 periods of missing time, each about 8 months. And that's kind of unique. Normally, they're a lot shorter than that. So this we want to hear about. She is also an author of 2 books. One is Covert Abduction, Military Harassment, Surveillance, Interrogations, and Mind Control. And the second book is They Weren't Butterflies, a Monarch Survivor's Story. And she has a weekly radio show on Starseed Awakening, and she's the owner and operator of Vector 5 Tours, where they take people out into the desert outside of Las Vegas. They meditate and call in and looking for UFOs, and they find them. Welcome to the show, Miesha.
Thank you for having me, Aage and Diana. Great to be here, and it's wonderful to talk to people from so far away. Wonderful. I love it when people come into my internet virtual groups that are from other countries. However, it's a little hard because of the time difference and such, but we're working on that.
Yeah, it's only about 8 o'clock in the evening over in Germany, where Diana is.
Oh, that's good to know. Okay. Okay. Well, where do you start? I'll start at the beginning. my first.
Yeah, Diana, did you want to ask anything there?
Yes, I think I have an issue with the sound. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can.
Yeah, we can hear you.
Okay, because I hear very, very interrupted everything that you said. That's why. Anyway, Miesha, thank you very much for being here today. And just for the listener that don't know you yet, can you tell us, just in a squeezed story, what was the turning point in your life that brought you on this spiritual path? So to speak, how did it all begin?
Okay, well, you know, it began in childhood, but what actually woke me up, because I had so much blank spots in my childhood, but in 1989, I was always attending and going to like different kinds of things to find answers, spiritual church, not per se a church, but more of a, it was called Teaching of the Inner Christ, is the name of the church. And things, and I went to different classes, and one of them was called self-mastery. And self-mastery, you needed to find the inner you needed to know what was going on. And I started seeing this very terribly traumatized inside and inner me. And so then at the same time, I went to John Bradshaw's Inner Child Workshop and was learning what was going on, and the memories started coming out then in 1989 about my childhood, about the ETs. Before then, I did not know about the ETs or really anything. I just had to, you know, been living somewhat, I thought, a normal life, but when you find out it's not. So in the beginning, you know, I was born in an MK Ultra family. I will explain that, well, of course, with the paperclip scientists and such, and they coming over, and then we had the mind control, and we had the Manchurian candidates and different things like that. And I would say it was our shadow government, a shadow part of the CIA, took it in and started working on this. Their idea was to ultimately for you know, in war and use it, but they used guinea pigs, and they really didn't care who they used. Yeah. And I think it had to do with the bloodlines as well. I'm from a German-French bloodline, and so that could very well be the reason. But a lot of members of my family were mind controlled. Let me put it that way, and it's a very, very long story. So I'm just going to say that my father was also mind controlled, and he ended up, you know, training me, traumatizing with trauma-based mind on me. He'd been tortured throughout his life too, and it's just something that they reciprocate, and it goes down. It does go down the line. However, when I found out, of course, mine stopped before anything went on in my family. So that was going on, but at the same time that was going on, I was also having ET experience. Now, I believe that our galactic family we are connected to them, and quite possibly we also have genetics that may be during stasis or embryos or whatever. I'm not sure how they do it, but I believe that many of us have genetics that are ET. Of course, you know, the DNA and the junk DNA and all of that. I believe that is alien DNA for sure. So we do have our galactic families out there, and from time to time, when you know, I believe that we decide to come to Earth, we accept the mission, and we come to Earth. And we assist for the different reasons. Many of us have all kinds of different things. Mine is, as you can see, what I'm doing. That's my mission. And I believe that we have different ETs come and visit us. Different parts of our galactic family will come and visit us from time to time throughout our life. Just to kind of give us a boost, help us understand that we're loved. And the kind of love that I got from some of my ET galactic family that would come and I called contact me, were absolutely unconditionally loving and very supportive. And they were very loving and supportive with what was going on in my life, where I was being trained throughout my life within this mind control concept. And yet I still had this other part of my life with the ETs visiting me. So, any questions?
So your ET experiences, then your contacts were all positive. Gosh, that is wonderful, because not all of them are.
Well, not all of them. At this point as a child and what was going on in my life, yes, these were positive. Later on, I did have some that were not positive. So the first ones that came and visited me were, I called them the Bee Gees. I was 3 years old, and they were fuzzy little guys with little button eyes, but little brown button eyes with just their little nose and a mouth. And they would come, and when they came, I could hear this little munchkin sound, this little tiny talking and stuff. It was their language. I didn't understand it. I don't remember too much telepathic message from them, other than a very kind, caring, loving, fun. And I needed that at that time, because at 3 years old is when my trauma-based mind control training started in my life. And so I believe they came to support me through that. So they were there until about 6 years old. And then when I was 6, another type came in, and I called this one the tall, willowy one. It was opalescent white, black eyes, very tall, very, 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 very tall, with a long neck, very long arms, very long, skinny body. And when he walked, he floated. So I'd like to tell you now about a very interesting disclosure. Soft disclosure happens in many ways, such as movies, okay? So when I was watching Star Wars is a very big one that has a lot of ETs in there that are giving you an indication of that they really are ETs that look like this. So the Bee Gees, when I saw the Ewoks, I went, oh my goodness, that's my Bee Gees. That's my Bee Gees. I called the Bee Gees the Bears, you know, and because they were little fuzzy guys. And then when I saw there was I think it's called Attack of the Clones or something like that. They depicted the same type of willowy one for me that I had experience with in that movie, when all the clone soldiers and there's this very tall willowy one like that. And so it was very interesting that they did. And of course, I think the Wookiees are Bigfoot. And, you know, there's so many different ETs that represented there. But so the willowy one took me through all the way in through to past puberty, actually. And I would just give you an example. Also, there were some little gray guys, too. But when they would come to my window, I would think they were deer. So I would see, in my mind, deers. So they gave me a screen image of 3 deers. And you can see how the big old heads and the big eyes and that would, you know, look like the face of a deer. And so that's what a lot of people see is deers and owls and the different types of animals that they use as screen memory, especially for children, because we're not afraid. We're not afraid of deer. Yeah. So they also told me at that time that because I was having trouble in school, I'd talk about what my experiences were, and I would get bullied. And they said, so they kind of started, they took away my memory mostly. And I asked them once, why do you take away my memory? And they said, well, it's much better for you to live in your world without knowing that you also have your other family and people don't understand yet. So it's not time to talk about it. So And I will say, when I communicate with the willowy one, it was telepathic. It was always telepathic. Also with the grays, that was telepathic. And then there was another type that came in, and I think it was kind of a slow introductory to what I would have seen later in my life, but it was a kind of a hybrid of a gray, and had, but it looked kind of like a gray, but had wrinkle kind of lines in it that not really wrinkled, but kind of lines like. And so when I felt it, it felt like, as a child, I thought alligator. It's an alligator skin. But it's soft and velvety. So it was, I believe, a reptilian and a gray hybrid. And again, I didn't have any bad feelings about this one. I believe that the ones that were coming to visit me were what I called service to others versus service to self. I believe that there's at least, and I don't want to give a percentage, but I'm just going to throw it out, 90% of the ETs are very positive beings. And they have already evolved past the hate and the fear and the war. And so they were really good to me. So that took me through my life and my puberty. But at the same time that was happening, I, of course, was still going under the mind control such. And I was there was an asylum near my grandmother's house, who she was also involved in it. And there were rituals, and there was all kinds of, more negative things. I do go into this in great depth in my book. And I also have a webinar on Portal to Ascension that people can go and check out the full webinar with the pictures, with PowerPoint presentation, anything like that. So if they want to check out more of my story, it's a 2 hour at least. So I'm trying to give you a really short version of it.
Yeah.
But any questions so far?
No, this is okay. I'll tell you, when it comes to these visitations, they have been all throughout your life.
Yes.
Have they, or were they? A lot of times they stop after a certain point. Did that happen to you, or?
Yes, it did. Yes, it stopped right about my 17th, 18th year. And the reason being is because I was taken full-fledged into the Monarch program.
That's the bad one.
Yes. At age 9, they were what they call put in service. And if you know about Pizzagate and the pedophile and things like that, that's the type of thing. So those kinds of things started happening to me. And so I survived through them. But at age, actually with 17, is when I met him. I was at a college. I'm going to make this very short. Okay. A man came in and asked us if we wanted to be in a dream study, and that we'd get paid for it. So the last thing I remember is I was walking into this brownstone building just off the campus, and I saw people in lab coats, and really that was the last memory I had, was walking in that building. The next memory I have is 8 months later. I'm on a bus. I'm looking down at a ticket, and I'm seeing my first name, but the wrong last name. And I start getting flashes through this long bus drive from Seattle back home to Idaho. And I see flashes, and I have flashes, and I'd have flashes of a big gate, iron gate, going through this iron gate. Also at the time, going through this iron gate on a bus with a bunch of girls my age and a bunch of younger boys as well. I have there was like 12 or so between them. And we're taking so I have a flash that shows me that. And then I have another thing that comes in. It's like this screen memory that is put in there that, you clean mansions. The only problem is this mansion, it was at nighttime and there were party going on and there was a lot of cars. And so I just got rid of that one thought and continued on to the other memories. And I started to remember what happened. And indeed, we were taken around to the back, and we were taken upstairs, and we were used as party favors. And party favors are, another term for being used as sexual slaves.
Yeah.
Both the children, both the younger boys, which were between 11 and 13, and us girls 17 to 18, maybe 19. I'm not sure how much older.
This reminds me of the movie Eyes Wide Shut.
Oh, absolutely. When I saw Eyes Wide Shut, that really was a traumatic moment for me. I stood up and I said, that's it, but it's all a lie. They don't use prostitutes. They use kidnapped kids. And these sick, perverted people enjoy this kind of stuff. At these parties, I saw dignitaries. I saw politicians. I saw movie stars. I even saw what I would determine as either ETs or they were so odd humans that you could never, they were. I just know they were ETs, even though they looked like humans, they were not.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, and there was the ritual abuse, and which I saw ritual sacrifice and things like that. Let me see, short in time. So, as I said, I'm going home in the bus, and these kinds of memories are flashing up. All of these memories. I get home and I'm absolutely, blown away and devastated. I call my parents. They come and pick me up, and they said, "My God, we haven't seen you for 8 months since your marriage." And I said, "My marriage?" They said, "Yes, your wedding." They proceeded to tell me about me having a wedding that I have no memory of. I have no memory of the man. I have no memory of the wedding. I walked down the aisle in a wedding dress, and even had a reception afterwards, but no memories whatsoever. Since I've done a lot of work in hypnotherapy and therapy period, but hypnotherapy to get back more of the detail of the memory of what happened. So my parents told me that they hadn't seen me because he had taken me away the very next day. And
what happened to the husband? Did he disappear, or was he still around?
I hunted him down because I had a wedding license, right? So I hunted him down, and sure enough, I found him. He was a Navy Marine corpsman. He was a decorated Navy Marine corpsman, and been in Vietnam. I believe if he wasn't himself mind controlled and a sleeper programmed, then he was part of it. I'm not sure, because I didn't even recognize him when I saw him at all. But I hunted down, and I found, actually, I didn't do it alone. I had a friend, had somebody that was more of an what did he do? Anyway, he didn't have a shingle that he was an investigator, but he did it on his own, and so he helped me, and we found him. And sure enough, that was him. I was sure of it. There was no doubt about it, because I saw his parents were the same people, and so that was that. But he was dead already. He'd already died, so I couldn't do anything about that. But then I also know that the following year, when I got back, I tried to get on with my life in Idaho, and I moved to Utah because I had such bad memories for me. And I moved to Utah, and I got a call one morning, and it was like a fax machine, and I found out what was said. It was said, "You will meet him at Bob's Big Boy, and you will leave with him." And I did. I up and left my job, and I guess I packed up my car. I don't remember really too much. I don't remember any of it. And I left with him, and I've come to find out it was Charlie again. It was the same husband. So he was my handler. And a handler is somebody who keeps you in a place where they want you, where they want to be able to use you, and can be available of you at any time. They can take you when they want. Also, a handler will keep somebody down emotionally, spiritually. A handler also for people who are targeted, and I work with a lot of people who are targeted in my hypnosis practice, as well as the groups and such. That handlers are there to keep you in isolation and keep you handled and down and financially broke and all of those things, and emotionally, all of those things, and that's their job.
They're easier to control if people have no means of their own, so they have to stay around, and then they've been. We've heard some stories, and gosh. Please go on. This is getting interesting.
Okay. Well, so this period of time, I was supposed. I went to San Francisco because that's where I ended up. Because 8 months later, there was a knock on my door, or I opened my door. That's when I woke up. I saw my brother. And he said, "We've been looking everywhere for you, and we found you now." And then I had nothing to tell him. I didn't have any memories whatsoever. Again, working a lot and getting memories and stuff. I found out that they had accessed me. And in this time in San Francisco, I was to go to San Francisco, but on the way to San Francisco, this memory in my head says we're traveling, right? Okay, so this memory in my head says that we're going to San Francisco, but we pick up people who are going to go to Woodstock, and we're going to take them to Woodstock. Now, there's no possible way that if you come from Utah, that you would go east to New York and then west to San Francisco. There's no possible way. So I found out also that I was using MIT. I'm not positive about that one. So I'm really, I'm still working on some more information. I was told by a whistleblower that there was a file on me that MIT that I should be paid for or something like that. I don't know. Oh. That he said, "Haven't you received any money?" And I said, "For what?" Well, the work that you did at MIT, and I said, I had no idea what you're talking about.
You need to do a Freedom of Information Act on that, because you can actually do that even at private companies if they have public and governmental funding. MIT has that, so you can do it.
Well, thank you. You know what? That's never come into my mind. Of course it hasn't. That's, these blockages, things like that. I'm writing it down right now because it's never come into my mind to ask about that. But that makes sense. So, but then I ended up in San Francisco, and in San Francisco was the same old stuff, a lot in San Francisco we were used as not just party favors, but we were used to put people in delicate situations. So they're doing
blackmail, probably
blackmail, right? Judges to be senators, things like that, so that they can be blackmailed later. And so that's the position. Now, I do want to tell you that the kinds of drugs they use, and it's not in front of me right now, so I have a hard time remembering, but scopolamine and ketamine and LSD and all of these things, along with electric shock, along with hypnosis, are the tools that they use to make not only a sex slave or a beta slave or a delta slave or a delta force or a Manchurian candidate or a sleeper. So these are the tools that they use to make people into whatever they want them to.
Yeah. Now, I tell you, we are at the bottom of the hour. Okay. Hold that thought, and then we will come back after the break And we're talking more about what happens within the Monarch program and the tools they use, because there's a lot more people that has been through this program and they may not know it. Just listening to this possibly could wake them up. So stay right there. We'll be back in about 3 minutes.
Are you intrigued by Paranormal Talk Radio? You'll love the new Paranormal Radio app from TalkStream Live. You'll find a great selection of talk shows covering UFOs, ghosts, strange phenomena, and much more. Download the Paranormal Radio app now and start listening to the very best in paranormal talk entertainment, including...
There's a lot of fear in coming back to school. I wasn't sure if I could do it. I'm a 40-year-old man that walked in there to get his high school diploma. It was very hard for me, but the teachers, the counselors, they help you. One of the teachers was Miss Araceli. Miss Araceli, she gave me direction. Every single time I had a question, she'll put down whatever she's doing and she'll come over and she'll sit there with you until you get it. Thank you, Miss Araceli. I know you make a difference in people's lives because of the person and teacher you are. I wanted to be here because I wanted to thank you for helping me get a beautiful gift. 50% of getting your high school diploma is walking through those doors. The other 50% is doing the work. Getting your high school diploma, it is a life-changing experience. It really is.
Find free adult education classes near you at finishyourdiploma.org.
Available now, Troll Spray. Do you have problems with trolls? Do you constantly find yourself turning on the light of truth and find they come out of the woodwork after you? Give your trolls a quick squirt of Troll Spray, and you'll be amazed at how quickly they flee. Troll Spray has been tested on all of the different types of trolls, shills, false prophets, doomsayers, sock puppets, and of course, those ever-fearsome hostile radio show hosts. It works on them all. Get Troll Spray today, available only at LNM Radio Network. Spray the trolls away with Troll Spray.
Why subscribe to Late Night in the Midlands, you ask? Well, I'll tell you why. Late Night in the Midlands covers everything, and through the thousands of expert guests who have joined Michael Vera on his show, come pieces of the big puzzle, which started many years ago. Michael and his guests reveal information dating back to the beginning of time. To this very moment, Michael Vera not only brings you the best guests with the best information, but Michael is not afraid to call out those who are less than honest. You see, in this day and age, we need a radio show we can count on and a radio host we can trust to expose the truth one show at a time. So become a late nighter and subscribe now. Talk radio like no other. Late Night in the Midlands, bringing the truth back to talk radio.
Great fear and trembling shall seize them, even to the ends of the earth. The earth shall be hurt, and all things will try and perish, while judgment shall come upon all, even upon all the righteous. Behold, he comes with 10,000s of his saints, to execute judgment upon them and destroy the wicked. Yet as God has appointed, so are all things brought to pass. No peace shall be to you.
Do you think social media is the end-all be-all? Do you live and breathe by Facebook and other platforms? Do you spend hours and hours endlessly going through posts by alleged friends in an endless quest to have a life? You need Fake Away, available exclusively through the LNM Radio Network. Our crack scientific teams have worked tirelessly to perfect this product, and have made it available to you through this limited offer. Fakeaway can solve the problems suffered by you and many others. It can help you understand you have been snowed by the fake media, the social media biases you encounter every time you click refresh, and even help your hair grow by keeping you from pulling it out over the smallest offenses. Get Fakeaway today, only through LNM Radio Network. Fakeaway is not for shills, disinfo agents, lovers of politicians who keep screwing the country, constant end-of-the-world predictors, liars, hostile radio show hosts, or snowflakes.
Okay, we are back with the Universal Consciousness Show, and we are talking with Miesha Johnston. And we were talking before the break about what kind of tools that we're using to control memory. This is something that, from what I understand, they use extreme trauma. And this is one of the things that maybe you could enlighten us a little bit on that, and then I would after that I would love to hear about the underground bases that you have some knowledge of.
Okay. All right. So the trauma starts, with it starts young. It has to start young, and so like I said, they use electric shock. So I had bands put around my head. I also was that helmets of some type that they used. And in the helmets for me were used to desensitize me to these horrible imagery that would be coming through the helmet and the goggle that was around it. And that it was not just, it would go on day after day after day to desensitize me to not be able to cry or cringe at horrible things, ugly things, blood, death, killing, all of these types of things. So these scenarios would go. Now I understand they do the same thing to children, and through the same kinds of trauma and stuff. I know some people who in the last maybe 20 years ago or so, they were doing these similar things, but they do it with a screen and everything. So there was just these different types of methods that they use too. And the whole purpose of it is to split your personality, to cause you to have alters. And these alters, they would use hypnosis. Once you're the electric shock and the other methods and the desensitization, and also we were putting boxes at a young age. I remember these things, and putting isolation boxes, putting isolation tanks, things like that. So once they get you, and the whole purpose was to get you to leave your body. Now, since they started my training at 3 years old, I was already an altered personality. They look for people who they can do this to, because they make the very best weapons / tools that they can use. Yeah. So they cause the DID, the dissociated disorder, and then another alter comes in and is completely in control, where the actual person, first alter, the first person, the front me was back in the back, and so I could only see flashes and imagery because I was asleep. In fact, a real quick thing is during hypnosis, the therapist was asking me, why don't you remember your wedding? And a person came through her name was Darlene, and she said because it wasn't her wedding, it was my wedding, and she's asleep. So a lot more went into that in my hypnotherapy. You know, I also have that, of course, in the book. So to give a little bit more information, just short here, because I only have 10 more minutes. All right. So next we go to my lab. So in the 1982, they started I started having my lab experience where I'd be taken to underground bases. Because I could interface with ETs and communicate with them, I was used often in different kinds of communication things because they couldn't communicate with all the different types of ETs. Like, for instance, there were Draconians there, or a reptilian factor of some type. I can say that some looked draconian, some looked different. Some had snake look, some had lizard look, some had dragon look. And they would communicate also with some of the grays. I would be interfacing and communicating because I could telepathically hear what they were saying. Also, I could also understand some of their galactic language. And this started, and I'm not sure if this was training or not, but this started when I was a child. And it continued off and on, but I was really concerned about it. And now it's a full thing that I do. I do communicate with with my ETs on board the ship. I also now communicate with, they call themselves a galactic consortium. And then I also communicate with some of my hybrids. I'm not sure if they're all my hybrids. I've been shown and presented with many hybrid children. And at one point I was taken to the nursery, and like all the other times of presentation, I was expecting to be presented with a child. This time I said, well, which one is it? And they said they all are. So this is a very common thing in the Experiencer hybrid program. So, okay, so that was another interest they had in me. So I can translate.
I noticed you said, excuse me, you noticed that there was another woman that came through and said it wasn't your wedding, it was her wedding. So yes. They installed another personality in you, or was it that something that just happened that maybe you have?
No, that's one of the many the alters that I had. Her name was Darlene. She was born when I was 3 years old. Because the therapist asked her what's your birth date, and she gave me the date that at 3 years old. So that's when the first split happened, and then after that there were other splits. So I've integrated my alters so that I am not bothered by any of them. I'm not any kind of sleeper. I've already made it through the suicide programming and all of the other things that they put in place. And now I want to help others. And so I want to just say for the last...
tell us about your support group that you're doing for ET experiencers and the MK Ultra victims and so on in Las Vegas.
Oh, okay. All right. I'll do that. But before I do, I just do want to say that all of these types of trainings that they did on me is the same kinds of things they are doing to targeted individuals. Only now they can do it all remotely. So it's remote psychic attacks. It is psychotronic attacks. So they're able to, and in fact, this presentation that I gave at the webinar, I explain in detail all the different kinds of things that they actually have, and I got it off a government website, that they have in place to, such as gas, such as different kinds of lasers, microwave weaponry, all these different kinds of things. Now they use that on people, and so people will think that they're just not having horrible headaches, they're having migraines, they're having lesions and burns on their body. They feel like they have voice to skull, which is the same thing that they did in the Desert Storm to Saddam Hussein's honor guard or whatever they were, and they did voice to skull, where you think that it is it's like the voice of God. They thought it was the voice of God. They thought it was Allah. So they use these kinds of things on people on a daily basis, day in, day out. They don't let them sleep. This is a real, true thing that's happening around our world, and they're targeted individuals. They're the next step to the MK Ultra mind control, because now they can do it remotely. And so I do provide these groups for people who are ET experiencers. Now, in the ET experience, it's like the first 2 hours is about ET experience. We go through a lot of people, their experience and their hybrids, their stories and things like that. In my Zoom groups, they're live virtual groups, but they are private. You have to get an invitation from me, so you have to communicate. You have to join the event group on Facebook, or you have to get a hold of me through my website, starseedawakening.org, and you can go and click onto the Zoom groups, and so you can share your own story. And so many, most of the stories are really of a positive nature that people have had. So that's why I say it's like 90% are positive ET experiences. The ones where the darker and terrible experiences come in, when it is the MyLab experience, or the the MyLab / MK Ultra that comes in. I also will say that even if it looks scary and is unusual to you, this ET does not mean that it's necessarily bad. And just because it looks beautiful and everything doesn't mean it's necessarily good. So, and in fact, I had experiences with, while I was having these MyLab experience with these different grays and reptilians types, I asked for help from my galactic family. And they sent me a very big reptilian for my protection. And he was a very kind, and he had a connection to me in my other lives that I believe go on simultaneously. And so he was my protector from then on. And he actually averted abductions, and I'd have a reptilian pop in my room that's going to take me to an underground base, and he'd show up, and then they'd leave. So he was my protector. There's more to that story, but he was also my protector. There was also he also was genetic hybridization as well. So going on with that positive faction that have been at war they said they'd been at war for millennia with these underground negative groups that are to self.
Yeah, there's a lot of them too. And you mentioned voice to skull. In fact, that is, there's a patent for that issue with the United States Patent Office. And I have the patent. I have posted it on both my website and in one of the videos I did, where they actually shoot microwaves at you, and they embed the voice on the microwave, and you get these thoughts, or you hear voices in your head where they could be told that they're being told to do something by God. And you're exactly right. This says right in the patent papers. They can do this.
Wow, very good for you. Good for you. Well, that's absolutely true. And they're using that, and they use that, and so they use sleepers that way. So they've tortured these people into becoming sleepers, and now the voice to skull will tell them to do these horrific things, and they have no memory of it, because their altar that is already inside them waiting was now activated, and that altar is the one that does it. So like Sirhan was a perfect example. He has no memory of ever shooting Kennedy. And so many other ones like that. So it's something that they do. And so I provide these groups for people that have had not only the positive ET experiences, but also the darker side of the government, shadow government, not government,
Yeah.
shadow government, shadow military that have my lab them and taken them and ruined their lives, and has continued to do that in a psychotronic through the telephone towers and HARP and satellites now. So
yeah, they do it. They have many different ways to do it, and I see we are 5 minutes away from the end of the show. So tell us about the groups that you are working with in Las Vegas, and also your books and your weekly radio show, and what you're doing up there.
Okay, so I have my groups and here in Las Vegas twice. One is for experiencers. The other one is for people. We bring in speakers and such as that. And then I also have my Vector 5 tours, which is somewhat of my livelihood. I do, of course, do hypnotherapy, and I can do hypnotherapy through the internet. We've found ways that actually people who do regression in their own home, in their own bed, they feel very comfortable and very safe. And sometimes they can get even deeper than they can right here in my office. So that's I have offered those. Of course, they do galactic light sessions, and these sessions are for people to find out what their galactic family are and speak with their galactic. I do speak galactic light language, many, say, 10 or 15 different types of languages, and then translate them. And so I tune in a mediumship way with their galactic, and they find out a lot of information that way. I also have cards that I've developed with Tana Newberry, which are experiencer cards that also on the website. So all of these, the galactic chart, the cards, the groups, all of those are on my website, starseedawakening.org. And of course, even Vector 5 Tours is also on there, but that's vector5tours.com. So, but it's also on my website, so you can find out about that. And I have my group, my books. My first book was Covert Abduction, Military Harassment, Surveillance, Interrogation, and Mind Control. And then the second book is They Weren't Butterflies, a Monarch Survivor's Story. And both of these are my life. The Covert is a lot about my lab experience, and the Monarch is my ET experience. Well, actually, both of them have some of my ET experience. So it was just a very short little book I was going to write, and then people told me I should get more into detail. So that's why I wrote the second book. They Weren't Butterflies. It's called They Weren't Butterflies because my father used to hypnotize me because he was a magician. And he was a show magician, actually, and he would hypnotize me and make me think I was seeing butterflies, but I instead was being taken to my trauma training. Let me see. I also have a radio show every Saturday from 12 to 2 on kcorradio.com, and you can go on and through Facebook. I have on the events, you can find my groups anytime you want. They're virtual groups. You can come and join them. You can join them with your camera, your video, or if you just have audio, or you can even call in. If you don't want to have anybody know who you are, you can even call in. Just as long as I send you that private link. And I'm going to be speaking at some conferences. I'm going to be speaking at the Stargate to the Cosmos, which is in Albuquerque on October 23rd, I believe it is. And in fact, right now I'm getting prepared to go to a conference where I'm doing a workshop at the Ascension Consciousness in Loveland, Colorado. And that starts on the 17th. And so you can find me at almost all of the conferences in the West, doing either speaking or just having a table there. So come by and see me and say hello. My website gives you the information on how they can get a hold of me if they need a session or they need to talk to somebody. Please contact me.
Yeah, mention that website one more time for those people that was hunting to find a pen when you said it last time.
Okay, starseedawakening.org.
That's wonderful. And I tell you, I don't get to Las Vegas very often, but when I do, I'm definitely going to look you up, because those trips into the desert when you're looking for UFOs and meditate out there and call them in, you are using night vision goggles, and with those you can see them.
And then we use lasers to spot them. And so we tag them with the lasers. That gives them, sometimes they'll power up, sometimes they'll zip out of sight. So that really shows you that they are a UFO ship, whereas satellites can't do that. And people, just about 98% of the time they have sightings. The only time we don't have sighting is if the cloud cover comes over and it blocks it. And that would be it. And I've had a few times when I was having to have a big, because I do these at conferences, and I'm doing this coming up at the conference at the of Loveland, Colorado, we've had chemtrails cover the skies. And so then the clouds come in and we're not able to do it. Or we have these horrendous storms that come out of nowhere that are not usual for the place. So I'm not saying they do it just for me, but when they see experiencers and people, they do want to make it difficult for all of us.
Yeah, I understand that. So, well, thank you very much for coming on with us and talking about this.
Thank you.
And for those of you that want to go and see actual UFOs, go to Las Vegas and get a hold of her. And you will do just that, I am sure. So thank you very much. And we will see you next week. And thank you very much, Miesha Johnston. And we will talk again.